Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Grant Mitchell and I am here to talk to you all about the latest and breaking news involving the Washington Commanders. Today was day one back out on the practice field where we got our first glimpse at everyone, including the new arrivals like Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil and Von Miller. We had some really encouraging signs from Jayden Daniels, not that there was ever any reason to doubt him. We have progress on the stadium deal. We are almost on the cusp of hearing the announcement that the Commanders will move back to RFK, and also still no Terry McLaurin. His holdout is officially in progress. We're going to be talking all about all of that and a whole lot more. Before we get into it though, do me a favor, hit the like button on this video. It does help me out tremendously, really gets me out there into the algorithms. I would also encourage you, if you are a fan of the Commanders or you're a DMV native or you just want to support me, hit that subscribe button as well so that you never miss out on my daily, yes, daily uploads, especially now that we have training camp here and the preseason. We're only 2 weeks away from the next preseason game, or the first preseason game, so you want to be around for that. Okay, so let's talk about what is actually going on out there on the practice field. The first throw of the day, a slot fade to Deebo Samuel, back corner of the end zone, right over the outstretched arm of Tyler Owens, touchdown for the Commanders. I wasn't there personally, but all the reporters are saying it was an absolute peach of a ball dropped into the back of the end zone. That's just what you love to hear. You know, there's been so much noise and talk about Terry McLaurin's contract, and Deebo is old and fat and his body's breaking down. You know what the best way possible to start this whole training camp off is? First pass touchdown to Deebo Samuel on a ball to the back of the end zone. It's poetic justice. It's perfect. It's just what we needed. And again, although I wasn't there, as I was reading the reports, it was like a cool breeze was just blowing on my back on a hot summer day. It was relaxing and calming and soothing because this is what we look forward to. The Commanders did not have an excellent roster last year. They did not have all pros at every position. But Jayden Daniels would calm the storm in the Falcons game, the Buccaneers game, the Lions game, the Eagles game in week 16 of the regular season. He was always there to say, hey, these fires over here, I'm going to put them out. Don't worry about it. And that's the feeling that I get from day one at this Commanders camp. Speaking of Jayden Daniels, the reporter asked him, what did you work on during the offseason? Which, in fairness, is actually a great question because Jayden was so good at a rookie that it's like, hey, what is the next step in your development? This is a direct quote here from Jayden Daniels. He said, I worked on my footwork, my control within the pocket, maneuvering, keeping my eyes downfield, putting myself in different situations where I might have to emulate breaking a tackle, getting my feet under me, and making throws. So a little bit of word vomit there, but essentially what it's all tying back to is the footwork, and whether that's in the pocket, escaping, getting ready to scramble and take off downfield, but still remaining alive as a passer, making sure that his feet are underneath him, so he's always in a position to do anything that he wants to do. Now, I'm not at all comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes is more accomplished and they're totally different players. But although when you think of the best running quarterbacks in the league, you'll think of Lamar Jackson, and you'll think of Jayden Daniels, and you'll think of Kyler Murray and maybe Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes is actually right up there as far as the best running quarterbacks in the league because he can escape the pocket so well, but also make these ridiculous off-platform throws from outside of the pocket, whether he's rolling right, left, he's off balance, it's a sidearm throw. And when I'm reading this quote, that's kind of what I imagine here that Jayden was working on. Not that he's training to become Harry Houdini, but just that he wants to be able to be on the move and still balanced and composed and have the ability to have the entire array of options ahead of him instead of just, oh, I'm running, so I got to take off and run right now. You know, we heard numerous times last season that Dan Quinn would remind Jayden, the quarterback coach, David Blau, not Tyler Blau. I was thinking Tyler Shuck from the draft and David Blau. David Blau would tell Jayden, hey, remember, eyes downfield, stay alive as a passer. It seems like he really took that to heart, and that's what he worked on. Also, he did talk a little bit about the weight that he put on, and I say weight in a good way. It's mostly muscle, it looks like. It's not going to be entirely muscle, but it does look like it. And look, his arms looked a lot bigger sitting up there at the press conference. He's sitting hunched over like this, so you can see him flexing the guns, and it was noticeable. And I'm not here to talk about his aura or anything like that. What I am going to say is that next time he gets popped on the sideline, like he did in that Buccaneers game, he bounced right up that time. But I do also remember when he got knocked out on the first drive of the Panthers game. Just get a little more muscle, a little more foundation there will help him withstand the hits, and that'll be good for the overall benefit of his career. Moving on to Terry McLaurin here. No surprise, he did not show up. This is officially day one of him holding out. He had been fined already for missing some mandatory stuff back in June, I believe. Maybe it was early July, but I think it was June. But from here on out, as long as he's not at practice, he will be missing $50,000 a day, or he'll be fined $50,000 per day. When he agrees to a new contract with the Commanders, those fines will most likely be waived, and they'll say, forget it ever happened. So this is probably a nothing burger right now, but that is assuming that a deal does get done. I want to revisit some things I said in yesterday's video because I have more updated figures. So Terry McLaurin is currently due to make $19.7 million this year, the final year of a 3-year extension he signed in 2022. If the Commanders don't agree to a contract with him, they could still give him the non-exclusive franchise tag, which essentially means that you're not allowed to go to another team. Now, you're ours on a 1-year fully guaranteed deal. According to Over the Cap, which does a great job with the financials of football, they estimate that the franchise tag for receivers next year will be $28.1 million, and in 2027, that would make it $33.7 million. So if we're looking at the next 3 years, this coming one being the final year of Terry's deal, and then the 2 franchise tag years, the Commanders essentially have Terry on a 3-year deal worth $27 million per year right now, here as we stand today. That's not terribly far off the region of what Terry's probably asking for. I know he wants to get above 30. And like if the Commanders were going to pay him 33, 35 million a year, yeah, he would definitely take that. But if we're being realistic, he could probably come down to that 30 million range. Well, the Commanders are looking at it like, okay, so that is one option, but we would have to probably keep it around for an extra year. You know, it'd be a 3-year extension at the minimum on top of the 1 year he has now. So that would put him under contract through his age 33 season, maybe even age 34 season. And it would be an extra $3 million per year. Whereas they're like, hey, we got you for 27 right now. And we have the flexibility of maybe after one of those franchise tag years, we see a sharp decline and we don't want to keep you around for the second year. You know, this is obviously, it sucks for Terry because he's done so much for this franchise and represented them so well. But the only people that Adam Peters should have loyalty to are actually not his players. His loyalty is to the fans, the Commanders fans who want their team to be good for years to come. And the best way to prove his loyalty to them is to work out the best deal possible for the team. So if he crunches the numbers and he said, hey, Terry's not going to go below $33 million a year, and that's just not conducive to our long-term success, we can't afford to pay him, then he's done his job, even if that means not agreeing to a contract. And again, this could come back to the whole franchise tag situation. Now, I know some people are probably saying, well, Terry's just going to continue to hold out. Well, let's think this through here. So if we're to assume that Terry isn't going to play this entire season, the Commanders are going to franchise tag him, and then he's not going to play the entirety of next season either. So that means he won't play football for 2 straight years. He'll be 31 years old, seeking a long-term deal from a new team that he has proven nothing for, or nothing to, and he hasn't played football in 2 years. That's not how he lands a long-term lucrative extension either. So the Commanders have all of the leverage in this situation. And again, I'm not advocating for robbing people of money or withholding payments or anything of that nature. But I'm just saying the way that the business of the NFL works, the Commanders hold the chips right now, and they do know that. Now, there were reports, and I want to make sure that I credit whoever said this. There were reports coming out of camp today that there was communication. This is according to Fox Sports' Felix Trammell. Want to make sure that I credited him. He posted a video on his X account, Twitter, and he said that there is dialogue, direct quote, there is dialogue between General Manager Adam Peters and Terry McLaurin's camp. That's what he has heard out there on the facility. Do we actually know what that means? No, but it is nice to know that they're in communication because we kind of need a resolution soon. No matter what the resolution is, we just need to know what the next steps are. Arguably the biggest story of the day, and this came out just about 30 to 40 minutes before I pressed the record button here, the Commander Stadium deal, the one that had collapsed and was put on pause until a meeting in September. No, we are back on. According to NBC News 4 reporter Mark Segraves, DC City Council Chairman, so the guy who's in charge of the DC City Council, Phil Mendelson, has agreed to a deal with the Commanders over new financial terms for their stadium build. I believe that this project was estimated to cost $3.6 billion, and the Commanders were going to finance $2.6 and needed $1 billion from DC. Or maybe it was $500 million from DC. I know that's a huge gap, obviously, $500 million we're talking about here. But they needed help from the DC City Council. Now, we don't know what these revised financial terms are, but whatever they were good enough for the Commanders' ownership. I assume that DC Mayor Muriel Bowser signed off on it because she has been an advocate of getting the Commanders back to the RFK site. And it was good enough for Phil Mendelson, who was leading the group of voters who voted no to the stadium deal. Now, because this happened, there could be a vote in the next couple of days. So it's possible by the end of the week, we have a full approval in place for the Commanders to move back to the RFK site. And as somebody who lives about 10 to 15 minutes south of Washington, D.C., if I can hop on the Metro and get to the Commanders' new stadium in 15 to 20 minutes by, I think, 2030 is the expected opening date, sign me up for that. When we're in year 6, year 7 of Jayden Daniels' career, and the Commanders are hopefully making sustained Super Bowl pushes, and maybe they are hosting the NFL draft, maybe they're hosting a Super Bowl at that time. It's just something that I want to be a part of. You know, as someone who's lived in Virginia and specifically Northern Virginia my entire life, I do envy people who live in New York and Chicago and LA and Miami, and people who get to celebrate sports in the heart of the city and feel the energy. I wasn't old enough to experience that when the Commanders were winning their Super Bowls. And also, when you're in the suburbs, or I'm not in the suburb, but the surrounding areas, you're just not quite there and you're not fully immersed. To be able to go to a game day in the heart of DC like that, just right off the Metro, and bam, you're at the stadium, I think it would be so freaking cool that I really does hope it happens. I really do hope it happens, I should say. Wrapping up the video here, we're going to talk about the offensive line real quick. Some really surprising but encouraging words from Dan Quinn, who said that he will not rule out Sam Cosmi making a Week 1 return to the lineup. Yes, less than 8 months after he tore his ACL, Sam Cosmi could be a starter in Week 1. Now, the Commanders' top offensive line today at training camp was Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti at the right guard spot, and then they had Andrew Wiley at the right tackle over Josh Conerly Jr., which some people will be frustrated by. But I remember when Jayden Daniels started the year behind Marcus Mariota on the depth chart last year. And I think that's the same thing that's happening to Conerly here. They know that he's going to be starting, but they want to make him go earn it. And they also want to show respect to the veterans they have. You know, Mariota hadn't proven anything to the Commanders or Dan Quinn necessarily, but he had a reputation in the league. He's a former Heisman winner who had been in the league for however long he'd been there. Andrew Wiley started pretty much every game for the Commanders last year. He's earned the right to at least open training camp as the starter. Now, if Conerly outperforms him, like a lot of us probably hope that he does, then he'll go to the bench and he'll take his lumps and he'll become a guy who fills in where needed. But I think this is the right thing to do. But to get a direct quote here on Dan Quinn, here's what he had to say about Sam Cosmi. I think it's on the table that he's ready for week 1 for sure. He's hitting all of the markers. I think we'll have a better answer on that as we get closer to the end of the preseason. I'm very encouraged with the work that he's put in. I learned something from one of my friends today who told me that according to new studies, if a rehabilitation process is done correctly, the person who was injured can come back stronger than they were when they got injured. And he said that if the surgeons repair it correctly and they rehab correctly, well, this fully functional, fully repaired ACL will be in a better spot than it was right before it tore. Because right before it tore, there were likely micro tears that were already eating away at it. And that makes sense when I think about it. I'm not a doctor, so I can't prove or disprove that, but it does make sense to me. And Sam Cosmi, even if he's just the regular old Sam Cosmi we know, that's a guy who is capable of making a Pro Bowl. And then he's going to have one of the best pass blocking tackles in the league on the left, a promising second-year player, a very solid top 10 center, and a first-round pick on his right. And that together could be a top 10, maybe even top 5 offensive line in the league, which I've talked about so many times on this channel. Go back, watch some of my old videos if you want my full thoughts on that. But guys, that is going to do it for this video here. I am going to get on out of here. Before you leave, though, I got a little bit of homework for you. Only take about 5 seconds. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, go to the comment section. Let me know what your biggest takeaway from day 1 of the official training camp is. I will be responding to everybody in the comment section. This is a community. This is not just me recording videos to an empty wall back here. So please leave me your thoughts. I will respond, and I will catch you all in the next episode.